Hi everybody, to grab our friends over on Twitch here. Everybody, welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. It's the 7th of July. It's 07:07:25. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. Um, I'm kind of cooked, just a little, I don't know, just a little burned, I guess, tonight. Just a little, we have Bill sign, yeah. Um, be honest with you, I want to just leap into this, but I'm getting a little concerned about this. Um, when I mentioned earlier that it was uh, the whole thing with the Epstein thing, and when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino came out and said that they'd seen the evidence and that Epstein did in fact commit suicide. I said, well, I trust Patel, and I especially trust Bongino, um, and uh, and then because okay, so I just didn't have the details of the suicide thing, but they announced that there is no client list, there is no he didn't do anything wrong, and and Bondi was just saying just a while ago that she had all these files on her desk, and now we're told there's nothing really to see here and move along. And this is the first time I've really felt like um, uh, kind of being, lied to. And I have to tell you, um, I honestly can't think of anything that would destroy. I'm just looking at the comments that I've been seeing today that would destroy people's faith in Donald Trump any faster than than the fact that than the sense that he's lying to them, um, and that this whole revolution, this whole MAGA revolution, is you know kind of a fairy tale. Uh, that's that's what I've been feeling today. Um, I I try to I try to say, well, maybe there's reasons for this, or but it's starting to feel more like copium, and hang on a second, let me just brighten this up just a little bit. And I don't like it. I don't like this feeling at all. Um, so no, I'm not saying just let the Dems have the House and Senate. I'm not giving up. I'm not saying anything. It just feels. Uh, uh, it just feels like we're getting gaslit, and so I don't know what to basically do about that. Um, hang on a second. So um, I don't know. I don't know. Uh, it just Roger Ram just says it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So there's been this speculation that well, there are people on the list, and they had to basically kind of squash it in order to get the big beautiful bill passed, and that's not what I'm particularly in the mood for. Uh, hang on a second. His Fendi says the head of the FBI, the Attorney General, the President are all transient pass-throughs. The permanent bureaucrats are there to stay. The people we elect and the people they appoint get to play in the sandbox, but the playground is owned by others. Um, uh, I'll tell you, I really think it would be less damaging if it turns out that this is if it turns out that this is, kind of what it looks like, nothing to see or move along after all of this time, and all of the things that Bondi said about it, and the fact that there's somebody in prison, um, for trafficking people when the trafficking didn't exist. If it turns out that that's the case, I really think it'd be less damaging if Trump were on the list than it would be for people to think that that uh, this whole thing is just so rigged that there's um, just I don't know. Um, Roger Ramses just says, I'm still troubled by the interview with Cash and Dan. They both appeared to be lying to me. It's the why that I'm waiting for. So, um, the this business about, if Trump's name was on the list, then the Democrats would have released it. Well, we know who's on the list. I mean, we know that the Clintons really started, that was the first name that was associated with the list, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know, man. I just it just um, and then there's the whole thing about when Elon and Trump first blew up, and that whole thing with Musk saying, oh, when the truth comes out, Trump's associated with this, you're not going to believe it, and then and then um, and then that just suddenly got hushed up and disappeared. And look, I'm not. I'm always here trying to keep a positive spin on things, and I'm not filled with despair exactly. I just don't like the way it feels. Um, the Porter in Chief has basically, I think, sums up how I'm feeling. If somebody like Trump cannot see the list released, then no one can, and that should bother all of us profoundly. Um, I, I, I ask myself sometimes, um, what I ask myself this hypothetical question: what if there was it doesn't even have to be the Epstein list. What if there was what if there was some information, secret information, that let's say I was elected president, and somebody said, Mr. President, here's the only briefing that matters. Here's this information, and if it was released to the public, the results would be so catastrophic for the country that uh, that you simply just can't release it. My response to that would be, there's nothing more catastrophic to the country than keeping American citizens in the dark about their own government and about their own lifestyle. Uh, better to bring out whatever is on this thing, if there's anything on this thing. If you don't trust the people, if you don't work for the people, then then it'd be nice for us just to know. You know, um, Eric says there's no physical cohesive list of all of the clients. Does not mean we don't have anything. It just means Epstein was smart enough not to have a special black book with all of the heroes need. It's just now that Dan and Cash need to piece together the client list through the investigation. So she said that there's video that she's seen and it's horrible and all the rest of it. But today we were essentially told, right? Um, and that, that there's really no there. Now, Franco with the super chat says the Axio report is fishy as hell. It's unofficial memo from no one to no one with no signature, suspect at best. Okay, that's actually kind of a relief, but but you would think that if that were the case, that if this were essentially a rumor, that they would be all over it. Eric says, I think Axios completely misrepresented what the FBI actually said. Well, it's got to be it's got to be the people in charge of this must know that this is causing enormous concern among MAGA people, and you'd think that they would be right out there in front of it saying, no, 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 hold on. This report that everybody's overreacting to, it's not real, it's misinformation or whatever. But I haven't heard that today. Conductor Production says it was confirmed by the press secretary today. So, government says I don't trust Bondi anymore. I'm not liking this, and I didn't like it. I didn't like this this split between Trump and Elon. I didn't like this. We're going to look into whether to deport Elon. I didn't like this whole, hey, what if we start an America Party thing? I thought the whole thing was just plain, just bad. Bad. But yeah, Dave Bugbude's got it. It's like, were Bondi and Patel, et cetera, lying before, or are they lying now? That's really what it comes down to me. And this makes me kind of, a little sick. It's just really disturbing. So, look, there's been many times when since Trump has been inaugurated for his second term, there have been many times that Trump did something that I thought was kind of nuts. Later found out, okay, this is this is a little worrisome. And you find out things that, okay, well, it turned out that this was a ploy, or this was a this, or this was a that, the whole Greenland thing, 51st state, Canada, all of that. Now, Mersh says, Bill, my metric has been, let me know when Kamala would have been better, then I'll start worrying. I don't subscribe to that philosophy. Obviously, it's better to have Trump than Harris, and I will continue to vote for the lesser of two evils. But my feeling was, for the first time, that I wasn't having to vote for the lesser of two evils. My feeling was that I got the chance to actually vote for something good, and it's not a question of, do I want to go to hell quickly or less quickly. I would just like to reverse direction and not go to hell. I got a bad feeling of this. About this whole big beautiful bill thing has just felt really bad to me from the beginning. The name of it, the money, and all of that. Obviously, I want the tax cuts locked in. I love the fact that ICE is getting 20 times the funding that it was getting before. All of these things are great. Charlie Kirk. This is another thing that really did it for me. Charlie Kirk posted something today where he said people are talking to him about there being an enormous push for amnesty in Washington. This is Charlie Kirk's posting. Now, that, I think, is probably what kind of pushed me over the edge on this. I don't know, man. This is like my entire. This is the philosophy that I defend, and I'm not giving up on America. I'll never give up on America. I'll never give up on the idea about that. But it just feels like this bloody bill has just sort of, it's like a black hole that kind of came into the solar system. It's just, well, there's gonna be a lot more spending, and a lot of the savings that we made and we thought we were gonna make, that's out the window, and the reducing the deficit is pretty much out the window. But we get this bill, and then this, and then these talks that are going around. Well, we needed to kind of squash the Epstein thing in order to get the big beautiful bill passed. And I'm thinking, what does this mean, man? Eric says Trump has always known better than to break his campaign promises as far back as the art of the deal, always deliver the goods. Well, okay, but let's just take the best case scenario. If the best case scenario is that we are in a stage of four-dimensional chess that's being played, and we are all getting huffy about something that hasn't really played out yet, it still goes to the transparency issue. Um, that's what, you know, that's what I was on fire about. Was this idea that, you know, like take the whole Doge thing, right? The whole USAID thing. You find out that there's so much corruption, there's so much spending, there's so much taxes that were going in, and you find out that Chelsea Clinton has gotten $12 million of my tax money for her mansion and for her wedding and all of this stuff. And you see all this and you just think, my God, the rot, the rot. Um, and uh, and so you think, wow, we've like something has fundamentally changed. And then you get these signals that are basically saying, uh, yeah, but there are some things that are so powerful that that you simply can't touch them, you can't be changed. It's like, who's in charge of this thing? And this is the part that bothers me, right? I made a strong case for believing Dan Bongino, strong case, and basically said, look, I trust Dan Bongino. I've trusted him. He didn't know he was going to be FBI director or assistant director. And if he says that Epstein committed suicide, then I believe him. But that wasn't a contradiction. This is a contradiction. The number of times that Bondi has said, well, we've got this thing, and I've seen some of the video, and it's just horrible, and it just feels bad. And Rusha says, well, Bill, instead of the best case scenario, let's take the worst case scenario. The worst case is Trump is the same status quo monoparty we had before. Not great, but we can survive that. Well, no. Look, I'm not giving up. You'll never hear me give up on America, ever. But if it turns out that we're getting, let's say we're getting 70% more transparency than we had before. Let's say we're getting 90% more transparency than we had before. And we're getting 90% of attack on the big state that would have been growing under Harris and so on. It just doesn't it's the thing I've been talking about for weeks now with this whole Archangel Michael thing. This you don't shake hands with evil. You don't compromise with it. It's the great great analogy. It's just, I remember first time I heard it, I just thought it was so clear. If you have a gallon of sewage and you add a drop of wine, you've got sewage. If you have a gallon of wine and you add a drop of sewage, you've got sewage. And I'm obviously an idealist in a lot of these things. And I know we live in the real world, but I would like some bloody explanations. Yeah, there are no angels here, only humans and devils. I get it. That's fine. But the look, my theory of government and my theory of America is that the only thing that you can actually trust is the people, all 300 million of them, and all of their contrariness and all of their cantankerousness and all of their arguing and all the rest of it. If you're telling me that there are things that the people cannot know, then that's not a question of, well, gee, that's a setback or be worse under Harris. It's like, which one is it? Which one is it? you either trust the people or you don't. And um, and I'm getting the feeling from this that there are things that we are not allowed to know. And when I hear things like that so many important people, you know, I don't. Oh, I don't know. This is an interesting little subset of this. Dave Big Booty says the things that the people don't need to know are the nuclear codes. Everything else should be open source. Look, we have undoubtedly got weapon systems that are top secret, that are under development, and the people don't need to know that. But um, that is a um, that's that's a cog issue. So I mean, clearly there are state secrets that 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 can't be made public. You can't have the American people know when the D-Day landings are going to occur. You can't broadcast that information. Um, so that clearly is needed. Um, but tell me how this is the same thing. I mean, I this just smells like, yeah, Lisa Roberts. I really get it. We can't have a government that's run on blackmail. If it turns out that there's stuff that is so compromising that that it has forced people that I consider to be people of integrity to cave, then what is I just feel better knowing who the puppet masters are, so I could at least um, give up on this illusion of self governance. Uh, but I'm not going to give up on this illusion of self governance. Um, and I really uh, and I really go back to that. I really go back to that Trump Elon blow up when Musk said, mark my words, when the truth comes out about this Epstein thing, and I thought, man, this is just childishness. Can we just grow up a little bit? But see, I don't think that Trump is on the list. Uh, and I'm just speaking out loud. Um, I don't know. I'm just demoralized. Mauritius says I maintain that Elon was making a guess, not speaking from actual knowledge. That's a man. That's not the kind of shot you want to take without having some evidence. John Pershing says if Trump were on the list, 100% Biden crew would have leaked it. Well, if they leaked it, see, this is what concerns me. What concerns me is that this is kind of a what's the word? This is kind of a mutually assured destruction between Republicans and Democrats, where neither side wants the thing released because there's people on both sides, and so it then becomes the club protecting itself against the people. Um, Now, Dave's Real Area 51 says Dave Reals Area 51 says demoralizes what they want from you. Okay, well, that's what the left wants from me. Um, and you know what the thing? It's like I was kind of dancing around it earlier. It's like I could forgive somebody being on the list. Uh, Let me rephrase that. I would rather know that somebody was on the list than know that they're lying to my face. Um, that's that to me is just how I feel about it. Um, and you know so look, let me just I'm just telling you how my brain is working myself through this because this is relatively new. I'm perfectly willing to just go ahead and stop for a second, just like stop and calm down. Um, uh, what if this whole thing is just a giant case of like mass hysteria where the list becomes like the tulip bulbs or the dot com boom, and everybody is completely obsessed with something that maybe didn't even exist in the first place, and that the whole thing is just kind of like a case of mass hysteria. Um, and I'm willing to take a look at my own beliefs and so on, um, and 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 all of that. But I don't know. Eric says I'm not demoralized because he's very confident that this will end with the crackdown Cash and Dan and Pam promised. O ye of little faith. Okay, but we are. Then why are we? Um, why is he putting the home team through this? Right? This is what I mentioned earlier. This could be end up to be a case where we were day two into a 5 day or a 20 day or a 2 month or a 5 month, um, master plan. It sounds a bit like copium to me, but let's just say that that's the case. Why? Why would you allow your base to be this upset about this? Because everywhere I've looked today, has been nothing but people just brokenhearted over this whole thing. Um, Marisha Dark says, um, Bill, when Cash and Dan first said Epstein killed himself, I floated the idea that maybe it's a rope-a-dope laying a trap like they faked Jim Gordon's death to blame Harvey Dent to catch Joker. Yeah, I don't know. Um, and SV Greenberg says no big reveal with the JFK files either. I didn't expect there to be a big reveal with the JFK files. Uh, I don't know, man. It just got a bad look to it, and um, I I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, this is the thing. Marcia Dark says, where did Epstein get all his money? He was a mathematics professor or something in high school, and clearly, I I don't know, man. I don't know. I just feel I feel the revulsion of things like the World Economic Forum and things like Bohemian Grove and and all of this stuff and this idea that uh, I, I'm not saying those things are are false. I'm just saying, uh, what would it take? I'm trying to think if everybody's done stuff that they're embarrassed about. Everybody's done stuff that they're ashamed of, and everybody has stuff from that they would like. Everybody uh, has has things that they really, 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 really don't want other people to know. Um, and And I'm asking myself, if I was threatened, somebody threatened me to reveal all of these things, and I had to think about whether I'd be willing to face that humiliation and all of that, because everybody has has secrets that somebody could use against them and get them to shut up. Uh, I come down to, and it includes things like, oh, that will kill your family and all that. It's like, I don't know, man. There's just things that I think are just more important than all of that, and I just really, get it. I mean, I would just say, well, this is what people have died for. We've all the men that have died for this country died for this idea, and I'm gonna I'm gonna sell out the history of this country and all of its principles and everything that I believe in, and that it means to me and the rest of the country and the rest of the patriots and the rest of the world. I'm going to give all of that stuff up just because I don't want to be embarrassed or I'm worried about my safety. It's, you know, um, yeah. Lulu said again. This is what bothers me. Was Pam Bondi repeatedly lying when she said there was a list on her desk that she was reviewing? She needs to answer for that. Yes, this is the part that bothers me. This is why when the thing first with Bongino and Patel, I said, look, I trust Bongino and Patel, um, and uh, and if they say he didn't kill himself, then I'm gonna believe him. But this is a contradiction. And yes, first time chat from Salty Comments. The Demon Rat Party uh, is shite, but the Republican Uniparty shills who can't even get the NFA repealed while they have complete control is why the American Party is a thing. And Mercia says, send Tim Pool in to grill them mercilessly. Um, See, I think this is bigger than Democrats, and well, if if what things look like turn out to be true, then talking about Republicans and Democrats is, well, this is the entire point of MAGA, man. This is what was so exciting to me, was that this was a coalition of people who wanted their government back. We wanted some we wanted to rip the Band-Aid off, and we didn't care how much it hurt. I know when they were going through, when Doge was tearing through those first couple weeks, and you were finding all these connections to these Democrat things, I said to myself, look, if they find Republicans have been taking USAID money, then throw them in jail too. I just want some honesty. I want some truth. I just want the truth. That's it. It's really pretty much comes down to that. I want the truth, and I am getting a strong sense that I'm not getting the truth. Um, and and I know everybody who's wrestling with this feels the same way. It's like, I just want the truth. I don't care how bad it looks, and I don't care who it burns. I don't care if it burns Trump. I don't care if it burns all of these people. I just want the truth. Um, and after that, I can I know who I'm fighting. I just want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I can. I can. And I think this is the ultimate thing that's so disturbing to me, is that sense, that is the entire sense that the people cannot know certain things for their own good, right? For their own good. Um, this is uh, this is Eric is confident that the whole thing is a giant head fake. He says, remember how you felt during the last election when I started panicking? I wasn't panicking. I was getting nervous. Uh, the During that 3-hour pause before they called Pennsylvania. Hi there, Donnie girl. Uh, and and it all turned out okay. I'd love for it to all turn out okay, but there are contradictions, and this is where logic comes in. When somebody says one thing and then they say something else, they're either lying then or they're lying now or they're lying both times, but they cannot be telling the truth. So, yes, and I agree with this Marisha Dark, let justice be done, though the heavens should fall. That's exactly how I feel. I want the heavens to fall. If this whole thing is just being propped up, then I just, I just want to be treated like an adult. I just keep getting, um, I don't know. See, this idea that that they're playing a game in order to draw out the opposition, or that we're this or that we're that. Um, I don't see how. I don't see how we have to be kept in the dark over this. So let's say that this is a giant plan, um, that has to be kept from the American people in order for it to work. I kind of, I kind of reject that premise. So, Road Rider says, "Go home, take a walk through the neighborhood with your life. With your wife. This is hurting. It's my job is to come here and talk with you guys, and because it's not, I'm not the only one who's hurting about this." Um, so, I don't know. I don't know, but I'll tell you. The situation as it exists now. I'm just speaking as a political analyst now. Has done a lot of damage, and I don't. That doesn't make me happy. Um, yes, I'm considering the possibility of 3D chess. I'm thinking, yes, but see, I don't see how the 3D chess has to include this sort of thing. Roger Ramjet says, "Why weren't the Democrats crowing today?" I don't know. Okay, we can get to something else. I'll just get into the questions and we'll talk about videos and stuff. Uh, Dan Cray says, "These aren't the drones you were looking for. Now move along." Remember that? Oh, there's nothing out there. Then it turns out, well, there was some sort of FAA flight kind of testing that was going on, and then it's like, um, yeah. It turns out we were flying some stuff, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's like, what was happening there? Um, again, this is the point, right? Uh, Gabriel's Area 51 says, "Well, if we're upset, that makes the ruse more believable if we know it's a ruse. If we don't know it's a ruse too." I don't see that it is. I don't see how the American people have to be a party um, to. I don't see how the American people have to be played on this. And again, I'm just venting here like everybody else. Um, Steve Young, AOC says, "A snark. Americans cannot be told there's no gold in Fort Knox because it was paid to Epstein for hookers and blow." What happened to Fort Knox? Remember that? Remember when we were going to get the video tour of Fort Knox? Remember when there was going to be an audit of Fort Knox? Well, why did we not get Why did we not get video of all the gold in Fort Knox is still there? No, the whole thing was a conspiracy theory. The whole thing was nuts. Of course the gold is still in Fort Knox. Here's the video of the gold in Fort Knox. Why didn't we get that? So, again, this is the point I'm trying to get to. John Pershing says, if 6 months from now there are hundreds of arrests and we had to keep this quiet for a while, but here you go, or some plausible explanation, if not trouble, big trouble for the midterms in 28. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't like being lied to. This is the ends justifies the means argument, which I've always felt is the surest path to hell, is the ends justify the means. So if we have to lie to the American people in order to clean this thing up, okay, well, after it's all over, then that will be a relief. But I still can't. Look, this is his power base, right? This is the energy source of MAGA. The whole reactor that drives this whole MAGA movement is transparency and honesty and getting to the root of corruption. And if they're saying that the corruption is so deep that we have to cut ourselves off from our energy source, well, okay, that may be the case. But again, I mean, where's that Fort Knox video? Was that just what was that? Remember that? We're going to audit Fort Knox. Now, when you say you're going to audit Fort Knox, you can either audit Fort Knox and say all the gold is gone. You can audit Fort Knox and say none of the gold is gone. You can audit Fort Knox and say some of the gold is gone. But we didn't get the audit. And you know, Trump's enough of a businessman to always under promise and over deliver. But it's like, what happened to that? What happened to this business about maybe we'll use tariffs to abolish the IRS? What about all of these things, and then the tariffs were just crippling China. Then it's like, we're gonna pause on that for a while, and I would like to have some I don't know. Yeah, Merger says I was told we'd abolish the income tax in TikTok. TikTok too. We're going to abolish TikTok because it's a first of all, it's a Chinese information app, and secondly because it's brain rot. And I was happy when TikTok was shut down for the 6 hours it was shut down. And it's like this inertia, It's just like this. You start pushing into this thing, and it's like, and it just the more you push, the thicker the pudding gets, and then finally you're just, you thought you'd go ripping through this thing, and you got 6 feet in, and now you're standing still again, and it's like, oh, okay. So Eric is convinced that the whole thing is part of a giant three-dimensional chess thing to lure the cockroaches out of the dark, and I pray to God he's right. But that sounds to me like copium when you add in the things like what happened to Doge period. we were going to, it looked like we were going to shut down the Department of Education. I was saying, man, these are the savings that we've got. We're just dealing with USAID. Wait till Doge gets to the Defense Department. That never happened. Big Balls resigned, didn't he? Didn't he? Does anybody remember what it was he said when he resigned? Didn't he say something along these lines? I'd be curious if anybody can remember what that, because that was another data point in this, like my antennas coming up. But I mean, Musk leaves Doge. That makes sense. I can understand why Elon left. That makes perfect sense that Elon left. He's a busy man. He's got all these things to run. But why did Big Balls leave? Didn't he say that it's pointless to is it Social Security now? Okay. Look, I'm not panicked. I just Big Boss said fraud wasn't what we initially heard. Okay. Look, one of the most plausible explanations for what I'm feeling right now is that I'm just a victim of mass hysteria. That's easily one of the most plausible explanations. That all of this stuff has been blown up either in my mind or with other people, that and that all of this is an emotional overreaction to something that was never really there in the first place. Like I said, that's entirely possible. Argros says we're learning that Trump can disrupt the system but not overturn it. Okay. Well, yeah, P7 2017 says, I'm not suddenly worried that this term is a head fake, but I had big hopes for this cabinet and more than one person has disappointed. See, like, for example, I was most excited about Hegseth, and everybody said Hegseth was a lightweight, and that Hegseth was just an alcoholic, former, grunt, basically. I didn't know anything about operating anything nearly as complex as the Defense Department, and all of the left criticize him. He doesn't have the emotional maturity, the intellect to be the head of the Defense Department. And then comes Midnight Hammer, which is the most flawlessly executed military operation, I think, in history. Absolutely perfect, and operational security was absolutely airtight. It was a masterpiece. And so Hegseth proved that I was right to put my trust in him. I love the fact that he was out there jogging at 5 o'clock in the morning, but then when it came time to actually see whether the guy's got the goods, he just did it. So where is Bongino, for example, who I knew? I mean, he was on a show when I did the NRA thing, and we're in the same line of work, and I still have an enormous affection for Dan Bongino, and I still respect him. I would love to have some explanation of. But my point is, Bongino cannot be unaware of the brouhaha this is causing. So either he doesn't care, or he has basically done, and this is my hope, and this is the point that Eric and others are making. My hope is that all of these guys are saying, yes, the base is going to be absolutely livid, and we're just going to have to eat it in order to catch these rats that we've been looking forward to, and so on. Okay, Um, but there'd better be a denouement to this story. Um, and anyway, it's just been a real. This is the point. P7 2017 says he can't be unaware of how this looks. Unlike other cabinet members, he's not stupid. He knows how this looks. He has Bongino has experience in this space, in the commentary space. He he knows he's got an audience. Um, Eric says, I recall once that a real hero is somebody who's willing to be hated in order to do the right thing. Yes, all of this is possible, but it doesn't. I don't know. I don't know. Richard wants to know, does Whittle's first law of optics come into play here? Well, obviously it must. Whittle's first law of optics says when you see something that is so unbelievably bad, the optics are so bad, the only reason you're seeing that is because the truth is worse. So, we'll see. It's all, we're a whole day into it. Tom Homan is the only guy doing his job, says Colonel Angus. I couldn't agree more with that. Antonin says Trump is the best we can get. Nothing changes in government almost ever. We would be lucky if one thing, a campaign promise, gets resolved. We should accept that. So, Andy Delovitz says, could they be protecting government institutions rather than people? Could the truth potentially damage our national security functions? This is my point. My point is there is no, I am not afraid of I'm not afraid of any scandal. I'm not afraid of corruption. I'm not afraid of any of this stuff. The only thing that I'm afraid of is the idea that people think that we don't need to know or we can't handle the truth or whatever, because that is the ultimate statement of elitism, which is why I don't. I don't know. I don't know. I hope Eric's right. I really do. I really hope he's right. But there's been a lot of things that, remember that $5,000 income tax thing that was floated? Is that just people thinking out loud? Is that just Trump just sort of doing what Trump does and just sort of riffing on things? Because you got to be careful about riffing on things like that, because that sounded like a proposition. That business about abolishing the IRS is not something you want to just bandy about if you're not serious about doing that. So, for all of the arguments that it's 3D chess, I'm saying I don't think that anything is worth destroying people's trust in you, even temporarily. Right? That's kind of the guts of what I wanted to say. I don't if you're saying in order to get them we gotta lie to our base, and then we'll tell them the truth once the trap closes, then I'm saying, what I'm essentially saying is, there is nothing that you could catch that is worth lying to the base. So we'll see. Kenneth Wolf says they're promising way too big of things and not following through, and I think that's why we're feeling this way and nothing mischievous is actually happening. That's really it. So, anyway, we'll see. Yeah, Deporter in Chief says 100% agreed. If this is 3D chess, it's the worst possible move I can imagine. So I'll just close this. I'll just close this with a hypothetical. Okay. I'll just close this with a hypothetical. Let's just say that there are two outcomes. I think we all agree that there's something out there with this Epstein thing, right? So here's a hypothetical. Which one would you rather have? Would you rather have an outcome where Donald Trump and Bondi and Patel and Bongino stand on stage and they say, we caught all of them. We've got all of them. They're all going to jail. And we had to lie to you in order to get these convictions? Or would you rather have those same people standing on stage saying, they all got away, we weren't able to catch any of them, because in order to catch them, we would have had to lie to you, and lying to you is the one thing we're not going to do. Which one would you rather have? I'd rather have B. Because ultimately, I don't really care about, Bill Clinton is going to his own special hell. Eric would rather have them lie to us and catch the bad guys. I would rather have them say, no. This is the foundational principle that we are selling, is we are not going to lie to you. This is what this whole thing is about. Now, everybody's coming up with A, and then people are saying B, and so on and so forth. I'm a B guy. I really am. Yeah, well, it's interesting how it splits out like that. We'll see. We'll see. All right. I don't guess we're going to get much more out of this. Yeah, and look, I would like to be wrong about this. You can make a case for the A. During World War II, we cracked the German polls, cracked the German codes, cracked Enigma, and there were many things that Germany did, including the bombing of Coventry, which we knew was going to happen. And if we had done something about it, it would have given away the fact that we'd cracked their codes and would have cost us the war. So I get that. I get it. So, we're just sitting here having a conversation and just sorting all this stuff out. But we'll see. Barbara France says, Look, I hope we're right. I hope we're right. But if it turns out that the 3D chess argument is true, then what you're saying is uh, what you're saying is there's no way um, to get at the truth without lying to people. Look, this news is very fresh, and everybody's got everybody's got their blood up, and everybody's you know all this. I was looking at the comment section on Steve Turley's segment on this, and it was just nonstop. Um, uh, you know, just nonstop anger and disappointment. The Rough Ryan says, I'd like to get all these Bildingers, Rothschilds, Illuminati, Royals into prison. Yes, me too. Me too. Uh, all right, well, I guess it's probably time to move on. There's not much more we're going to be able to get into this, so let's go to the comment section here. Roadrunner says, do I have any new videos to talk about? I was going to download a couple of them, but wasn't anything that was particularly new, and I just don't really do that. Road Rider says the meeting is a cabinet meeting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Good. All I would like is for this to be addressed. And you know what? I really think that 90% of my problem with this would go away if somebody said to me, okay, you're going to have to trust us. This is D-Day landing information. This is you know what I mean? If just during the thing tomorrow morning, somebody were to say, look, I know a lot of people are upset about this, and we understand you're upset about this, and we're asking you, you've trusted us before, we're asking you to trust us again, that we're doing this for the good of the country, and all will be revealed in the fullness of time. I think I'd feel a little bit better, but I don't know. We'll see. All right. Let's go ahead and see what we get. Road Rider says Peter Ducey really mocked the press secretary today, and she was rocked and shaken. Yeah, this is the thing, man. I know it said we're moving out of here, but this is the thing. That everybody looks really uncomfortable, and I don't know. Cindy Who Too says, Bill, I'm fairly new here. Would you mind catching me up on who you are and what you do? I'm curious about the sci-fi stuff behind you. Um, well, I'm I'm a writer. I saw the Thunder. I'll just give it the pocket thing. Saw the Thunderbirds when I was 5, and I was going to go to the Air Force Academy. So I spent 12 years, taught at the Miami Planetarium, and I was all set to go and shoot down communists at supersonic speeds and command a Mars mission. And that whole future that was promised to us space age kids failed the vision test for the Air Force Academy. Friends of mine took me out and started making movies. I am an actual theater major at the University of Florida. And I figured if I couldn't actually, fly to Mars, then I would fly as much as I could in the real world in experimental airplanes and stuff that looked cool. So I have my pilot's license. I have about 1,000 hours in instrument rating, and experimental airplanes. I just don't really like the Cessnas and the rest of the stuff. So I stumbled into the political commentary by writing a blog that was just about my feelings during the Iraq War and the beginning of the Afghanistan War, and wrote some essays, and that got some attention. Got hired by PJTV to do political commentary. So I stumbled into the political commentary thing. I had a blog called Eject, 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 and I called it that because I'd always loved this country and always been a capitalist. I'd always been, obviously pro-military and so on. But when I was in the theater department, I was a lot more liberal because everybody else was, and everybody, I like to say that I passionately believed in things I knew nothing about. So the science fiction stuff has been with me since childhood, and it's been on the back burners during the course of my entire what's it been, 18 years now or something like that in political arena. I've always tried to talk more about morality and philosophy than just politics. A road writer says, question, did you write your afterburners? Yes, sir, I sure did. I wrote every single word of every single thing that's come out of my mouth. I wrote. So over the course of the last, my exposure was much greater 10 years ago. I did a series of videos called Firewalls and Afterburners that were scripted and that tried to take a look at particular issues. That's kind of what made my reputation. The last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing historical series for Daily Wire, which is great because they put real money behind it and real staff. So I did multi-part series on the space race, America's Forgotten Heroes, the Cold War, and the Soviet secret police state. And those were well received. I've been involved with CGI, traditional traditional 3D animation since 1992, just making spaceships and cool stuff just to keep from going crazy. And then starting about 6-7 weeks ago, I started, after watching it from the sidelines for a long time, I started getting involved with AI animation, AI imagery, and since then I've done 2 kind of long, relatively long form, 5-6 minute AI productions, and I've been very, very impressed by it. Let me see if I have anything that's worth showing. Hang on a second. Yeah, so I've just got. I'll just drop one thing in the thing just to show you. I've been, as I say, I've been working on in the 3D side, trying to get realistic, photorealistic. That term is badly abused. There's a lot of computer graphics are called photorealistic, or this photorealistic Unreal Engine 5. I did a lot of work with Unreal Engine 5, a lot of work in 3D Studio, and once you start working in traditional CGI, you start telling yourself that this is photorealistic because it looks really, really good, and you tell yourself this looks photorealistic, and then along comes video, AI video, which is genuinely photorealistic, and you realize, uh, uh, no, the CGI is just not. So here's just one of the many problems with AI video right now as it exists is that you only get 5-second bits. But here's a 5-second bit for you. I'll drop it into YouTube where it will loop. This is just me goofing around. But that look it doesn't play through for some reason on stream on Twitch. So hang on a second. I have to restart it like that by cutting away to it. And one more time. So that looks really real, and I got completely really, really impressed with it. So now I've got the beginnings of an actual movie studio. If you follow AI videos, you find that the things that CGI does very well, AI video does very, very poorly, and the things that CGI does very, very poorly, AI does very, very well. AI can make images look absolutely photorealistic because it is photorealistic. All it's essentially doing is averaging out, billions of images. So it's not trying to generate a photographic image. It's using photographic images and basically shuffling the deck on them. But at the same time, it's so bloody frustrating because in AI, you want to say, move the camera 2 feet to the left, and it won't do it because it doesn't know what 3D space is. It only knows what 2D space is. So the two technologies are merging and they're getting closer. And every day, even in the 6-7 weeks that I've been into it heavily, there have been breakthroughs in things that have been keeping us from what I want, which is a desktop movie studio, and by movie studio I mean Lawrence of Arabia, where you can't tell the difference. That's the holy grail, and it's encouraging because while the software isn't there yet, and while it causes me some real genuine in fact, lots of genuine frustration, it nevertheless, yeah, it's another one, hang on. It's not quite perfect, but it's a better image than any CGI can make. Here's another one I'll just show you real quick. Here, just give you one more. And again, on Twitch, I gotta restart it constantly. So, it looks, yes, Hornetworks, I did talk about Charlie Kirk. We just finished a really turbulent hour on all of this angst. One more time. But this stuff looks fantastic, and so this is where my heart and soul is. So we'll see. but that Charlie Kirk report. See, we just wrapped this up. We're moving on to questions, and so that's the short form, Cindy. Um, Thank you. But the thing of it is that it's like I said, it's one thing. Dave Big Booty wants to know, will there be any human actors in the colonies, or will it all be AI? I don't see any way to make it with human actors. With human actors, you have to have just to have human actors, you have to have costumes. And when you're dealing with sci-fi, you have to have spacesuits, and you have to have sets, and it's the difference between this thing costing hundreds of thousands of dollars versus tens of millions of dollars. And so, I don't see any way to do it other than full AI. Now, Big Bat Problems, on the other hand, Big Bat Problems is designed to be a low budget movie that's really, really interesting, and that takes place in the present day. You don't have all those problems, so there we go. Um, okay, so let's go to questions here. Um, Let me just see what we got. Thank you, Roadrunner, for curating this. We got Capital G Geek, we got Marisha Dark, Eric Blake. Did I miss some? I see one, two, three. Somebody said five. I see three. And I'm doing three. Um, so, uh, no, Big Bad Problems is a live action film, and CGI is a much better use for the aliens, because compositing is great, and CGI is the answer for most of the new stuff. It's just that it's human faces that where things really fall apart. So I'm actually glad we have three. Um, just real quick, there's a super chat from Lapco92. Good evening, Bill. Dream Loop Cinema just dropped another Soviet Star Trek AI vid yesterday. They have three of them. If you missed them, you'll like them. I saw the thumbnail of Spock in this, Soviet Star Trek thing, so we'll see. Um, I'll check that out after the show, hopefully. Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. Um, there was a pediatrician in Texas that just got fired for saying that the campers killed in the floods deserved it because their parents voted for Trump. I really don't want to live on the same planet with these people, and don't see any way this doesn't end in bloodshed. I'm with you, buddy. I saw these things, and I just thought, and then there was this other chick who got fired. She was an elementary school teacher, and she was saying, this was like on the 3rd of July. She said, tomorrow sure would be a good day to do it. She didn't say what, if you decided to do it tomorrow, boy, we would all stand with you. We sure would, sure would all back you on that. And I thought, did I ever actively wish for the death of Joe Biden, that Joe Biden would be assassinated, or Barack Obama be assassinated? And the honest to God answer is no. I never did wish for those things. And this is the difference between us and them. I never wished for that. Many times I wish they were in jail, but no. That's a line that beyond which lies madness. So no, I never, ever, ever felt that. Coast Guard rescue swimmer P.O. Scott Ruskin rescued 165 from the Texas flooding. Petty Officer Scott Ruskin rescued 165 from the Texas flooding. He needs a medal. My God, where's a picture of this man? Here's a little snippet. United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer and petty officer Scott Ruskin directly saved an astonishing 165 victims in the devastating flooding in central Texas. This was his first rescue mission of his career, and he was the only triage coordinator at the scene. See, that's why they'll never, ever, ever beat this country. That's why I want an honest government, because guys like Scott Ruskin deserve it, and God bless him. Oh my God, I thought for sure he was a lesbian of color. Turns out it's a straight white male. How's that possible? You know, that L.A. fire chief. Remember her? I know it's hard to discern the number of lesbians that were on the L.A. Fire Department during the L.A. fires, but the big fat one that said, when asked, "Can you carry a man out of a burning building?" she replied, "Well, if he's in a burning building, he shouldn't have been there in the first place." Um, uh, so his hair appears to be kind of a dark blonde. Um, I'm surprised that Scott Ruskin uh, didn't just say, well, if those people had no business being down there, if they didn't want to drown, they shouldn't have been camped out on a floodplain. Those miserable swine. Yes, he deserves a medal. He deserves an absolute medal. Um, uh, so, and by the way, well, I was wondering if the Congressional Medal of Honor really applies in this case, but I think the Congressional Medal of Honor really is. Uh, I think it needs to be reserved for acts of outstanding courage under fire. I'm not saying that what he did wasn't heroic, it was exceptionally heroic. But the Presidential Medal of Freedom, yeah, I completely agree with that. He needs recognition. And it was his first mission. Um, Back to Capital G Geek. A side note from last week: Satan and the demons are not currently in hell. There's some that are chained in darkness, but most roam freely on the earth. That's the idea that Satan rules hell comes from Dante's Inferno. Yes, I don't know if it was actually in Paradise Lost, which I've been rereading recently. Um, uh, God releases Satan from the lake of fire and allows him to come to earth. And uh, yeah, I might as well get into this because it give us wash that bad taste from earlier out of our mouth. Um, let me just get to this last sentence, and then I'll come back to this issue because I think it's important. Um, in other news, my wife's last chemo treatment is tomorrow. Hopefully, all the chemo damage is reversible. Uh, Capital G, all our thoughts and prayers are with you and with your wife and a lot of people who aren't religious scorn this idea of prayer. But I'll tell you the one thing that is indisputable about prayer. Um, uh, Whether or not you believe in a divine deity who hears the voice of his creations, take it at its absolute lowest level, knowing that there are large numbers of people who haven't met you, who are keeping you in their thoughts and invoking health and happiness and all of the rest of it. That alone has enormous power. Um, Enormous power. Uh, you know, uh, we had a kind of a comical little wasn't was I didn't mean for it to be comical. We had a little incident a week ago, maybe 2 shows ago, 3 shows ago, where somebody who's a regular asked how Bean is doing. Bean was my pet cat who I miss very much, and Bean died back in early May, and he just missed it. He just missed the news, but um, and it's like it's almost like a standard joke. It's like, Hey, how's your wife doing? Oh, she died 4 years ago. Oh, um, but what I said to him, and what I mean, and the reason I'm bringing this up here now is because uh, the fact that so many people who have never met me cared about this animal and cared about me, was enormous help to me. Um, yeah, Gunzi gets it exactly what I'm trying to, and this is the lowest level of prayer. Gunzi says, I'm not religious, and when somebody says they're praying for me, I thank them because it really is a thoughtful gesture. It's great. Um, it's great to be, it's wonderful that people will do that for you. Um, I want to deal with this. It's a philosophical issue. And since we only have 3 questions, I can take a little sideline here. Um, I suppose on some level I was guilty of this. Although, when I think about all the things where when I was, when I was at my most liberal, I was always pro-American. I was always pro-business. I was always pro-military. I never hated the country. Um, I um, never was one of those, um, people who hated all of this stuff. And same thing for me when I was scientific, a materialist, atheist kind of thing. I was sure I had all the answers, I had everything figured out. My big chimp brain is able to figure out all of these things, and we don't, you pass some electricity through methane and ammonia and hydrogen and helium, and brown liquid trickles down the side, which are amino acids, and so therefore there it is. Uh, the I've come a long way since then. Uh, I got invited by Jonathan, a producer, who worked with me on the What We Saw series, invited me to his church for 4th of July. And Natasha and I got out of that car at about 8 o'clock at night, so it was still daylight. But got out of that car and started walking just onto the grounds, and everybody was smiling and everybody was happy, and there were slides and kids were playing, and there were kids everywhere, and everybody was just so nice. And the first thing I said to Natasha, I said, this is the country I grew up in. This is what America was like when I was a kid. And I want to go back, because I just felt home there. But I want to deal with this business about, since it came up. So I've been fascinated by St. Michael and Mike Walsh's writings and this whole idea of Western civilization and so on. So the question is, 2 questions. I've heard atheists on Facebook and TikTok both using this argument. The first argument is, it's basically the same argument. The first argument is, God is omniscient. I'm talking about within the context of the Bible story of Adam and Eve. Okay, so God creates Adam and Eve. God says that He creates them with free will. Nobody had to worry about whether or not the sheep were going to eat the apple. He tells Adam and Eve that everything in this garden is for you, and you'll live forever and be healthy forever. But you can't eat out of the tree of knowledge, because if you do eat out of the tree of knowledge, you will then learn the difference between right and wrong, and you will become like gods. That will give you the knowledge of right and wrong and take away your innocence. So you are forbidden to eat from that tree. And this atheist chick was saying, well, God, if He's omniscient, knew in advance that Eve was going to take a bite out of that apple and hand it to Adam, and Adam was going to take a bite out of that apple. So God knew that this was going to happen. So God basically created humans to fail. And one of the arguments is that God, knowing in advance what Adam and Eve were going to do, doesn't detract from the fact that they still got to make up their own mind and use their free will. But moving on to the larger issue in the context of things like the classical Christian theology and Paradise Lost and so on. Why does God let Satan? Why does God let Satan out of hell? Why does God allow Satan to tempt mankind? He has the ability to stop it. It's a sort of a corollary or a meta argument of why does God allow bad things to happen to people? But let's just deal with this one specific point. Why did God allow Satan out of the lake of fire to come to earth and make mischief, knowing that it was going to trap enormous numbers of people and condemn them to lives of lies and deception? What it comes down to is this: if humans don't have free will, if humans don't have the ability to choose, then we are animals. Dogs don't do undogly things. Bees, my friend Jim said something I just thought was so profound. He said, bees are never wrong. I thought, it took me a second to realize just how profound that is. Bees are never wrong. But humans have a choice. And so when somebody says, what kind of a God would allow temptation, there's two things at stake here. First of all, if humans were immune to temptation, if they didn't have free will, then we would just be robots. We'd be literally sheep. We would be sheep and cows and bees and everything else. We would be just like everything else. The entire purpose of releasing Satan from the lake of fire is to tempt us, and no one is immune to temptation, and there is no one who has not sinned. Well, with one notable exception. So basically, what's happening is, if you have choice, your decisions to choose good or evil, and no one goes through life choosing only good. Everybody commits evil. Everybody. But nevertheless, there are good people, and there are bad people. And it comes down to the choices they make. When you deal with things like the death penalty for murderers, my inclination is to say, no, just lock them up for the rest of their lives. But then I think about, no, there's so many cases where people on their knees begging for their lives, and this guy simply goes and laughs and executes this guy's entire family in front of his eyes before he kills them, and they laugh about it and they brag about it. Those people deserve to die, and they deserve to die because of the choices they make. Now, you can argue that they came from abusive backgrounds and all the rest of it, but ultimately they made a decision. And if they didn't make a decision, if they're completely prisoners of their upbringing, then we are nothing but robots. We're nothing but bots. We're just the inevitable pachinko ball outcome of which little wires we bounce off of, and whether we go ding 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 all the way to the side of good or ding 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 all the way to the side of evil. Most people bell curve in the middle and so on. But it's the essence of humanity to have free will and to be able to err, to be able to go wrong. This is the human condition. The human condition is a constant struggle between doing the right thing and doing the easy thing. And sometimes it's a struggle between doing the right thing and doing the smart thing. And it's a struggle we all fail to some degree or another, but taken on a spectrum, there are people who are good people, and there are people who are not good people. When somebody says, "I'm glad those girls died because I don't like who they voted for, even though they didn't vote. I don't like who their parents voted for, so I'm glad they died." That person says something like that as a result of choices and decisions that they've made in life. And when you get guys like Scott Ruskin, who goes jumping into the water and saves 165 lives, that guy um, became who he is because of the decisions that he's made in his life. And my entire process of waking up morally and spiritually is a result of me looking at the kind of people that come from these philosophies. And what I find is that the people that come from progressive philosophies are what I consider to be loathsome individuals. And most of the people I know, not all of them, but most of them, in fact, the vast majority of the really good people I know are Christians. And that didn't escape my attention. So clearly, the programming, the software, is a big part of the equation. And there's some hardware there too. But I, if Satan had remained chained in the lake of fire, and there was no temptation, then how would we become good? How would we be good people? You only become a good person by deciding to be a good person. If you again, if nobody faults a lion for bagging uh, for bagging a baby gazelle and eating it alive. No one says, well, what an evil thing to do. It's like, no, that's the lion's nature. Paul says, Bill, you say they're loathsome, but remember they're all children of God, and He loves everyone equally. He does. God does love loathsome people, and forgiveness is available to them. So this is the thing, though. You see a lot of, like, for example, see a lot of trans people, trans activists, in pride parades saying, Jesus was on our side because Jesus hung out with the prostitutes and the freaks and the weirdos, and He loved us despite the fact. And they're right about that. But the one thing that they conveniently forget is that Jesus loves them and offers them grace if they repent and atone and change their behavior. Jesus doesn't have a stamp that just kept saying, you are offered redemption and salvation if you change. If you change. And that is something they keep leaving off the table. Yes, Jesus hung out with prostitutes but He hung out with former prostitutes. That's the point. He hung out with former prostitutes and former tax collectors and former murderers and former lepers. He doesn't accept people without demanding that they change their ways. And Copy Shinato, go, and Conductor Productions, go and sin no more. It's not an endless get out of jail free card. It's not a go keep sinning and just come back to me as often as you want to, and I'll just wash those away. It doesn't work that way. And I just think that's an important thing to understand, and that is why we're here. And Mike Walsh makes the case that conflict is unique to Western civilization. That the understanding that we are both bad and good, and that the entire purpose of life is making the difficult decision as often as possible to choose what's right, even though it's more trouble and oftentimes, in fact, virtually every time, much harder and more painful. It's a test, and and the thing that the big prize that nobody talks about is the more uncomfortable you are, the more the more tribulations you're put through, the stronger you become, and the more grateful you become, and the more actualized and whole you become. And and so, uh, what I would say to you, capital G, is if you're getting a great deal of trials and tribulations right now, it's because somebody thinks you're worthy of them. Uh, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, before he launched the counterattack down uh, Little Round Top, when he's running out of ammunition and he's got to hold this line, and he knows that the future of the battle, the future of the war, the future of the country is dependent on him and his 20th Maine Regiment. He walks down that line and he says, "Men, not once in a century are men permitted to bear this kind of responsibility and hardship." He realized that this was a gift to them. It's like, my God, what an opportunity you've been given. Um, what an opportunity you've been given now. He turned it into he turned what was surely looked like a suicidal stand into transcendental uh, opportunity. And that's why Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain is one of my favorite people in all of history. Um, he he simply it's hard to imagine any other individual being able to pull off what he did, because he was an extremely competent soldier, but he was a professor of rhetoric at Bowdoin College. I mean, he was a scholar and a philosopher. And it's hard to imagine that anyone else could have held that position, but he did. And so then you start asking yourself, how many times in history has the right person been in exactly the right place at the same time, at the right time? And you start stacking up these coincidences, and you start to wonder, now, at what point do all these coincidences reach a level of unlikeliness that it's no longer the best explanation? Um, when people talk about, we don't, the number of people who can talk about this in the first person is dwindling to zero now. But the people who went through, as my dad did, went through the Depression and World War II. Um, my mom lived through the Blitz, the German bombing of London. She was a little girl. She was 10 or 11. And many people who went through these horrible, horrible things look back on it and say it was the best times of their lives because of what it did to people, because of the connections that were formed, and the depth of connections. Uh, Countless, endless stories of men who developed friendships under combat that lasted a lifetime, and that would have been unthinkable under any other circumstances. There's so much. There's so much gold. There's something called a fire assay, where you try to determine what a percentage of gold is, or you've got some gold ore or whatever. And I don't know an awful lot about this, but in metallurgy, you basically have to heat it up to find out how much gold is in there. It's called a fire assay, and this is how life works. The more fire you get, the more gold you release. Uncover, maybe, is a better term. Um, so um, so when you're being tested, uh, and I feel like I've been tested a lot lately. Not with anything on your level in terms of a single heavy burden, but just having to carry lots of rice around, lots and lots and lots of things. And I realize it's a lesson in faith for me because I'm not inclined to to be that kind of person. I'm the kind of person who's always felt that when it looks like I'm about to hit the ground, that means I'm going to hit the ground, and been living in a real precarious place for years now, and it's a and I'm learning. I'm learning. I don't know how these things are going to resolve themselves, but I just say they will resolve themselves. You're not gonna you're not gonna die. It's gonna it's changing a lot of it wasn't even bad habits, just things I just didn't know anything about, and changing behaviors. Uh, but those behaviors were never intentionally, bad. I'm just becoming more responsible, and I'm learning to believe that things will be okay. And that's a hard thing for some people. If you had good parents, it's built into you. If you didn't, and you're the kind of person who suffered from addiction or alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever, uh, all of those things are ways to medicate the pain and the anxiety of not believing that things are going to be okay. And it takes work. And and I'm I've often thought about this, and you think about the story of the especially like the ancient Hebrews. They're being guided through the desert by a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night, and food falls from the heavens every day in the form of manna, and God says the only um, constraint I put on this food falling out of the sky is that you do not get to save it or store it. And still, the Israelites are trying to uh, store it because they don't believe it's going to be there tomorrow, because they're worried it won't be there tomorrow. And you realize it's a test of faith. But I think to myself, my God, man, if God said don't fear, and money started falling out of the sky, and He says it'll be there tomorrow, I wake up tomorrow and it's falling out of the sky tomorrow, 2 days is all I need. Um, I'm From that point I'm good to go. Um, I got to take this question over on YouTube. You busted half nickel swamp says, Bill, why does a person who's been clean and sober from alcohol or drugs for 20 to 30 years still call themselves alcoholics or drug addicts? It's because they're still alcoholics and drug addicts. And I'm speaking. It's a long story for people who are new. I did 18 months in Narcotics Anonymous, and I didn't have a narcotics problem, and I didn't have an alcohol problem. I just had an addiction problem, an addictive personality. And that addictive personality is based on a fundamental emptiness and a lack of belief that things are going to be okay. So the reason that people who've been clean and sober from alcohol for 20 or 30 years still call themselves alcoholics or addicts is because they know that there's no cure for this. There's only treatment. If At what point does one stop being an addict and consider themselves cured? They never. People like us are never cured. We are we are what's the word I'm looking for here? Our lives have become manageable through effort. And that effort gets easier over time as it becomes a habit. But you can't, if you are an alcoholic once, you cannot be cured of alcoholism. If you're an alcoholic, you can stop drinking. But the only way you stop drinking is knowing that if you start drinking, you will not stop drinking again. I'm not an alcoholic. I go out and have drinks every now and then. I don't think I've ever bought liquor for myself to consume at home, but God knows I've gone out plenty of times and had a number of martinis or whatever the case may be and been completely fine with that. But there are people who can't do that. And yes, John Pershing says, think of it as a chronic condition you need to manage. One of the things I feel is somewhat analogous to this is people with type 2 diabetes. They're never cured of it. They simply have to take insulin for the rest of their lives. Castellan says, those of us without addictive personalities can't comprehend what it's like. And that is an enormously important realization. Most conservatives don't get to the level of wisdom that Castellan has just reached there. He's saying, what Castellan is saying there is, I cannot understand what it's like to have an addictive personality. But what he's not saying is there's no such thing as an addictive personality. You're just weak-willed or lazy, or just stop, or just say no, or you should stop doing this, or buck up, or man up, or stop being a drama queen, or whatever. So that's important. So, there you go. Anyway, it was a little diversion there. Marusha Dark says his question has something to do with this, so we'll see what we got here. Marusha says, I'm someone with an addictive personality, but I still recognize the theoretical point at which a cure could be had. Even if it's gene therapy we don't have yet, the idea of never sounds defeatist. Well, gene therapy is not going to save you because it's not a genetic problem. It's a psychological problem. And unfortunately, it is... it happens within the first several years of your life. By the time you're 4 or 5, you're pretty much out of the woods or in the woods for life. Spirit Warrior says, what about the spiritual side of things? There is an enemy out there who can drive you to those kind of behaviors. Yes, but for people who are not broken in that way, they'll never understand why people will drink themselves into ruin. They can't. They say just stop doing that, and it's like people are aware of this. It's not like it's a mystery to them. There really are. The reason that the 12-step programs are effective as a form of insulin on a daily basis is that let's see if I can explain this. Is that the first step, which is the most important step, is you say, I am powerless over my addiction. I surrender. I cannot solve this problem by myself. I've tried, and that's why I'm in these rooms. It is bigger and more powerful than I am, and I cannot do this on my own. Followed immediately by an appeal to a higher power to help you. And this is a form of sort of reparenting yourself, is a term that I've heard, and I thought has some truth to it. The things that you didn't get, you won't get. You're never going to get them. You're always going to be looking for something to fill that hole that usually came as a result of something in those first formative years. And the best you can hope for is to be quick in your wheelchair. And that's, once you accept that, it's okay. Loman Bates says, Bill, could you take a moment to define addictive personality for me, or maybe give me an example? Yeah, so people who are raised with a sense of security from their parents, um, uh, people who were adequately nurtured and form biochemical attachments and have grown up in an environment that is safe and and secure, and that becomes their default subconscious um, truth, right? People who don't have addictive personality disorders uh, understand that they're valued and that things are going to be okay and that there's going to be help and all of that because they've gotten it from the time they were born. Other people, for whatever reason, don't get those connections, and so they live in a perpetual state of anxiety and fear, and a perpetual state of it turns into unworthiness, but it's not that when you're little. It's more of an anxiety. They've never been given that fundamental human sense that things are going to be okay. So they develop various mechanisms to deal with this as they get older, um, and uh, and so some like Robin Williams, for example, is a great. Um, uh, Robin Williams is a great example. Somebody was talking about Robin Williams. Robin Williams. This was right after he committed suicide. But somebody said that Robin Williams' problem is Robin Williams was describing his own wife and how he always had to make his mom laugh. He felt that he always had to make his mom laugh. And the person describing Robin Williams said Robin's problem was that Robin um, always had to be Robin plus. It could never just be Robin. It could never just be. He felt that he could never just be loved for being Robin. He had to be loved for being Robin who makes you laugh, or Robin who does this, or Robin who does that, or any of these cases. It's you plus something, and that it's that plus something is a hole that can never be filled. He I have real mixed feelings about Robin Williams because I saw how compulsive he was about. Robin Williams could never just sit down and let somebody else talk, ever, because he always had to be. It was compulsive for him, he had to do it. So so he had this giant hole in the center of him, which was, I'm not good enough for my mom's love, apparently, for Robin Williams. So if I make her laugh, then I'll be good enough. And so he spent his entire life chasing, making people laugh, and he got really good at it. And an addictive personality will say things like, well, if I can make people laugh, and if I become famous, and if I become rich, and then I'll have, most of these people are very, very shy. Then I'll have all of this prestige and fame and women and all the rest of it. And the worst thing that can happen to those people is have them get it, because people like Robin Williams and many, 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 many others, most people in show business, in fact, virtually all of them, when they get the money and the success and the fame and the women or whatever the case may be, and they still feel that emptiness, then they've got no place to go. Then that's when the drugs hit. And so Robin Williams had to drink in order to medicate the pain of being Robin Williams, medicate the pain of just constantly having to be on. If Robin Williams wasn't on, then he wasn't there. Um, and and that's a horrible, horrible fate, man. Um, Somebody asked, did my wife, did I go to the 12-step programs by myself, or did my wife talk me into it? No, I did it out on my own when I was 26, 27, and I never would have been able to marry my wife if I hadn't gone through that. I still think it's a wonder anyway, but yeah, and there are, it's just it's really kind of like being it's like being born with a gammy leg, man. You if you've got a withered leg, you've always got that withered leg. You will you can develop crutches, and you can walk. And if you've got there are people I know who've had deformed legs and were able to walk almost undetectable that they had a limp, but they always will have it, and there's no getting around of it, And so there you go. It's just it's the luck of the draw. Nobody asks for this, and there are worse things that can happen to you. But it's a painful way to go through life, in this perpetual state of anxiety and uncertainty and sort of emptiness, So, Roadrunner has a super chat there. Says, Bill, I've really enjoyed Natasha's last few relaxation videos. Are her last couple of videos, Sacred Geometry and Architecture and Ballroom Fantasy, a hint that she would like a larger house? Asking for a friend. No, she's Natasha. The single salient thing about my wife is that she sees beauty in everything and creates it everywhere she goes. She can take a photograph of something and make it beautiful. The way she decorates her house, the way she dresses, she has the most impeccable taste of anybody I've ever seen. I mean, anything she wears, she looks spectacular. She just has astonishingly good taste. And then once we got married, she was able to get into painting, and then jewelry design, and then clothing ornamentation and design, and then lately into this music. She's been doing sound bowls for quite a long time, and then she got into AI music, and then these videos on her channel, her YouTube channel, these relaxation videos. No, she doesn't need a winter palace. I think she'd like to have a larger place, but I don't think either one of us really need a palace. She just sees beauty, and she wants to help other people see beauty, and she likes teaching, beauty. She likes working with kids and turning people onto things. So she just makes things beautiful. Is what she does. It's interesting. I don't put a lot of faith in this, but that's just me. She had tarot cards drawn when we first met, and she turned out to be the Queen of Cups, and I turned out to be the King of Swords and the Fool. And the King of Swords is interesting, because that goes to that whole kind of warrior thing that I've always had, and my obsession with military history and my willingness to go into really dark places and see what this world really is about. But the Fool is interesting, because the Fool, the tarot for the Fool, is a guy who's, I think he's reading a book in front of his face, and he's about to step off a cliff, and a dog has got him by the belt and is just basically keeping him off of the cliff. But the thing about the Fool is that the Fool is able to the Fool builds castles in the air, so he's constantly imagining things and uh, doesn't do well with the practical aspects of the world, but does have the ability to create things out of thin air. So it's a pretty good draw for me, actually, in terms of uh, of my personality type, which is very contradictory. You know, those two things are really kind of contradictory. So um, anyway, so there's that. Back to the questions here. Marusha Dark topic: the real deal maker in chief. Hey, Bill. I know you more or less given up on Marvel movies at this point, but last night I binge watched Ironheart. Well, you're a better man than I am. I'm happy to report it's actually a lot better than I was expecting. It had lessons about hard work, morality, meritocracy, family, and being careful about what you wish for. You might just get it. Not to mention stuff about AI, the union of science and magic, and what it means to be human. You're the first person I've ever heard who said anything positive about that. I Let's continue. Without spoiling anything, let's just say the main antagonist got me thinking about our conversation last week. The idea that there's a price for telling the devil yes and a price for telling him no, and that oftentimes the outcome looks and feels the same either way. I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but I was wondering if there was ever a time in your life when you were offered a Faustian bargain, one in which you said yes and one in which you said no. Also, since you brought up the idea last week that fallen angels are jealous of mankind for our free will, which they don't have, doesn't that mean they had no choice but to rebel and sin and to tempt us? That they're exactly as God made them and couldn't do otherwise? I don't know about you, but I've never condemned my toaster to eternal fire, damnation, and torture for failing to heat bread. After all, isn't that the whole point of free will in the first place? Uh, yeah. The so a third of the angels in heaven rebelled under Satan, and clearly that was a choice. So I said angels didn't have free will. They don't. I guess the best way to put it is they got it out of their system early. That the rebellious angels were always rebellious and couldn't change, and that the good angels were always good and couldn't be tempted. So yes, they made a decision, but they kind of made the decisions that they were kind of built into them. Uh, I have heard that there is a subset of this mythos where a number of the fallen angels went out of hell before God and on bended knees, asked for forgiveness and asked to be readmitted to the kingdom of heaven, because humans had been forgiven and admitted into the kingdom of heaven, and God denied them. And God's reason for denying them was that, unlike humans, the angels had actually lived and seen His glory. That they had been there, in the presence of God in heaven, and that that made their sin more egregious than humans, who are much more easily led astray, having not been at the throne of glory the way that God does. Copy Shinato says, perhaps an infinite God of infinite dimensions sees more than we 3 to 4 dimensionals. This is what got me away from my atheistic, scientific, materialistic world point. Yes, and when you find out that the observation of the double slit experiment means that when you look at something, you change the outcome, that's when I realized that reality conforms to the observer, and that the more sophisticated observer you have, the more that influences things. And if we think that these little cantaloupes that we have up here of gray jelly is as smart as you can get, if humans are able to influence reality on the quantum level by making an observation, then surely a more refined observer must be able to manipulate the universe in quantum ways where essentially you could speak something into being, and that seemed to me to be pretty much exactly what happened. So that's what got me going. Once I realized that observation and intelligence affects the structure of the universe, then it's a short step to say, well, then surely a vastly superior consciousness should be able to manipulate matter by simply thinking about it. And that's pretty much what the Bible says. The Bible says that, God spoke the world into being. He made an observation, and there it was. That was a simple step for me, actually. So, you know, if it turned out that consciousness and the universe were completely separate, then I think the materialists would have a much better case. But when you find out things like you do the double slit experiment, and light behaves like a wave or a particle, and then when you have an observer there, it starts to behave differently. When you put a camera on there, it behaves differently. When you put the camera in the room but don't power the camera up, it still behaves as if it's being observed. That's that's a that reality is not explainable through mechanistic reasons. And once you open that door, then everything else gets to be a lot easier. Uh, so, um, was there ever a time when I was offered a Faustian bargain, and one in which I said yes, and one in which I said no? Um, uh, the only thing that comes to mind, I'll give you an honest answer about this. It's a long way from a Faustian bargain, because it was a generous offer, and it was yeah, the COVID money. That's definitely one of them. That's not the one that came to mind. So there's two. Three times during the COVID pandemic, I got a letter from the bank saying, since you own a small business, you're eligible for these loans, and if you can't repay them, then they'll be written off. And on three occasions, and I needed the money. I really did. Uh, I didn't take them because my business wasn't dependent on my business wasn't affected by COVID. You could make the case that my business might actually have been enhanced by COVID, because people have more time at home to watch watch videos. So I declined that offer because I didn't feel like I deserved it. I didn't feel like it felt dishonest to me. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of businesses took that money, and many of them didn't pay it back. And P7 says, "Huh, I got called an idiot for not taking the money. I didn't because I didn't earn it, but that wasn't apparently the point." That's exactly right, And there have been many times when I felt like an idiot for not taking the money, but that's when I realized sometimes the choice is not between doing the right thing and the wrong thing. Sometimes the choice is between doing the right thing and the smart thing. Would have probably been smart to take that money, but it just didn't feel right to me, so I didn't do it. The other example I was thinking of was when things were really getting tough here. I got an offer to go and work at Daily Wire, um, and it would have involved moving to Tennessee, and I would have been on a salary, and all of these worries about income and where's the next rent payment going to come from, and all that stuff would have gone away. And I did not want to do that. And Natasha, to her everlasting credit, said, "If you take this, you'll never be the same. You just won't." So I didn't take it. And many reasons, but one of the main one was I would have had to give up, the BillWhittle.com membership. They would have been folded into Daily Wire, and I just didn't want to be an employee, and I think I would have had a very hard time of it. Now, yeah, so, you know, it's it was security, and I think it was security that would have cost me happiness. So, you know, you make your choice and you live with the consequences. Um, uh, so that was, like I said, I certainly wouldn't say it wouldn't be a Faustian bargain. At least at Daily Wire, your boss wouldn't be such a slave driver. Well, I love this. I only heard it a few years ago, um, but I loved it when I heard it. Somebody said an entrepreneur is somebody who doesn't want to work a 40-hour week, so they work an 80-hour week. Yeah, I thought that was really the case. Um, okay, last one for the night, and then we're going to wrap it up. Tonight, the case of Eric Blake. Tonight, the case of the Superman sophistry. So, Bill, with the new Superman film coming out, as is always the case in such circumstances, the same old debate has sprung up on whether or not Clark counts as an illegal immigrant. Now, to invoke a certain Robin Hood, unlike some other conservative pundits, I am not one to cower from such a debate with such a big ass, not a real world scenario. As a man of culture, I've thought about this for a long time, and it's actually very simple. First, Cal Clark was sent to Earth as a newborn without any adults accompanying him, and his first moments on Earth were on American soil, so ambitious attorney could argue for de facto natural born citizenship, but I digress. Second, this lone orphan newborn was promptly adopted by two American citizens. By itself, it's clearly a completely different scenario. American couple finds an abandoned baby and adopts him, no muss, no fuss. But third, I can tell you right now that no Republican president, Trump or otherwise, would even think of deporting Superman. As a matter of national security, it would be vital such a physically powerful man remain an American asset as opposed to one for our enemies, besides with the simple fact of him being survivor of his world's destruction that actually would be legal grounds for legitimate asylum. Do you concur, Citizen Whittle? Well, Superman came to Earth as an infant. As an infant. Infants are not capable of making a moral decision. Infants are like bees. Um, he did not make the decision to enter the country illegally, and and uh, and most especially, well, let me put it to you this way: uh, I didn't, I can't imagine seeing Superman standing on top of a burning car waving a Krypton flag. Um, he famously, the actor, um, uh, who I've not been much impressed with, certainly doesn't look like Superman to me, is uncomfortable with truth, justice, and the American way. So he's changed that to Superman's motto is, I believe in truth, justice, and good things. That's about as milquetoast as you can get it. But Andy Schnick says Superman's a fictional character, so all of this is academic. It is academic, but you can often learn things from this if you take it as a thought experiment. Um, Superman is an American because Superman sets his motto as truth, justice, and the American way. He is he is an American because that's where he grew up. He's as American as anybody else. Eric says, as Henry Cavill Superman said to the General at the end of Man of Steel, I grew up in Kansas, General. I'm about as American as it gets. Yes, amen to that. And he did not maintain a dual loyalty. You know, the thing that's Lapco has a super chat there. Says Superman's not a human though. Do laws even apply? See, this is a beautiful thing about this. By the way, Marisha says, what if Superman crash landed in Russia? There's a. I'm not a comic book fan, but there is a somebody gave me a hard copy, a series of comics called Red Sun, where that's exactly what happens, where Superman lands in the Soviet Union, and and Stalin becomes his adopted father, and he becomes a tool for international communism. It's a it's a uh, it's a really interesting and his suit is pretty interesting too. Um, so so here's the thing about this, about laws don't apply. This is why I think Superman is the analog for America. Um, uh, Superman is constrained only by his own decency. He is essentially a god. He's the only superhero. You see Superman versus Batman, Superman versus no, it's Superman versus all of them, and Superman wins. There's no one else in his league. He is. I think the only character that I can think of that even approaches him would be Thor, because Thor is an actual god. But Superman, there's nothing that can stop Superman. Except his own decency, which is what the ideal of America is. I mean, we have this unbelievable military power, and we are constrained. Um, we are constrained. That power is constrained only by our own decency and unwillingness to use it unless it is absolutely necessary and for a just cause. Now we fall short of that sometimes, obviously, but we do the best we can. Um, uh, he is one, and I don't I think the new movie deals with this, but if there really was a Superman, the question is, would he be loved or hated? For every person Superman is capable of saving, there's hundreds of thousands of people that he can't save because he can't be in all places at all times. So if Superman swoops down and saves your little girl from a flood, let's say, that's great. But what about the floods in Calcutta, or what about the person who is being mugged or murdered, or whatever the case? The number of people that Superman can't save so outweighs the number of people that he can save, that he would have, even if he did nothing but save people, the number of people who hated him for not saving their relatives. How come you saved him but not me or her? That's the human. That's kind of the socialist mentality, really. Superman comes in and rescues this plane. Plane is about to explode in midair. Superman grabs the plane, lands it in a arena, in a football stadium or a baseball diamond or something. Oh, Superman just saved 27 people. Yeah, well, my cousin just got shot. How come Superman didn't save him? Goddamn Superman. And so the reality of it would be that he would be, I think, largely despised by people who are just incapable of seeing past their own nose. And it must be hell being Superman. I mean, just flying over New York with Lois Lane, over Metropolis rather. You'd think the guy earned that, right? But during that time, how many people need him down there? Yeah, it's the politics of envy. Roger Ram just says that's exactly right. And Marisha says the left, we need Superman power redistribution. That's exactly correct. There would be a call for a Superman allocation committee, and Superman would become a slave to the state, where committees of people would determine what Superman's powers would best be applied to. Superman, we need you to go over here and do this, and then you get into the whole needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and all the rest of it, and blah 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 blah, and I mean, honestly, if Superman were real, and Superman was on the earth saving people, and I had somebody die because and Superman didn't save them, I can tell you with confidence that I would not be resentful of Superman. You know, I'd be grateful for the people that he saved. I'd be grateful for him to come here and do these good things. And this is the difference between conservatives and progressives in a nutshell. You know, it's like we'll take all the help we can get. It's all uh, uh, um, it's a net gain. If it turns out that you didn't get your wish, well, that's fine. But to be envious of it, or to be, hateful of it, or jealous of it, or whatever, no. I would just, if I saw him, and if somebody I'd known was in a bus and the bus went off a cliff and Superman didn't save them, I wouldn't be angry at Superman for that. I'd be grateful for Superman for saving the busloads of kids that he did save, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I would not carry that resentment, but some people are just wired that way, and those people go into progressive politics. Um, so, you know, that's uh, that's how I look at the world. I've never been envious of people who have more than I have ever. I've never ever been envious of it, um, and I've never really understood it. Um, I mean, I can conceive of it, but I've never internalized it. I've never been able to understand people who have to have power over other people. The idea of telling people what to do and having them listen to you has no appeal to me whatsoever. None. None. I can't imagine what it must be like to be so narcissistic that your entire purpose of life is to get yourself into a position where people will obey your will and do what you tell them to. It's just diseased. Um, I don't know. It's just not a affliction that I have, and that's why it's so hard for conservatives to fight against progressivisms and communism and stuff. We can't conceive of people who would lie and cheat and destroy what we would consider to be their personal honor for personal gain. Um, we were talking about the stuff at the very, very beginning of this, the whole thing with the Trump thing and the Epstein thing and so on. I have many, many times in my life run as a um, thought experiment the idea of how much money would it take for me to betray my principles. And I have convinced myself, after giving this a great deal of thought over a long time, that there is no amount of money, no amount of money that would get me to do that. It would be the end of me. Um, seriously, $1 million, $1 billion. If I had $100 billion, I could go to Mars, and then you could start making all the arguments about all the good you could do with the billion. But you would lose yourself. You know, you would you'd be a liar. You'd be a fraud. You'd be a rich fraud, but you'd be a fraud. I'm just not. I'm not. There is no amount of money that could get me to do that. No amount of money. And sometimes there's these board games and party games and so on, where they ask these moral questions about this and that and how much would it cost, and people say, well, I don't know if I'd do it for $1 million, but I'd do it for $1 billion. It's like, I don't know, man. Uh, anyway, so hopefully that deals with it. But no, I don't. Tom Gerlach says, when the lottery was $1 billion, I thought 2 girls at one time. First of all, you don't have to have $1 billion to pull that off. Secondly, um, uh, you could, you know, uh, that old saw, money can't buy you love, but it can definitely rent you some first-rate affection. And there you go. So, yeah, I don't know. It's maybe it's just a result of all the, just all the. I mean, what's the point of having walked through all of this fire, um, just to, just to, you know, give it away, you know? You forged and forged and forged. You heat it up and smash with a hammer and put into freezing cold water and then heat it again, smash with a hammer and back into the water. And it's like, yeah, this happened to you 50, 60 years. You begin to cherish the results of that, and I don't see any reason to throw it away, especially as you get into the fourth quarter. It's like, I don't think so, man. Yeah. So anyway, bill for $1 billion was you live as a dwarf with no legs and a Barry White voice for 8 years straight. Then after 8 years, you get $1 billion to go back to normal size Bill voice. No, I don't think I would take that deal. Um, uh, what is the hmm, I just thought experiments. I think we talked about this before. I think mentioned it when I got back from Washington because I was reading so much Mike Walsh. Uh, but that's really not connected to anything. But we'll just go out on this. Have you guys ever heard of Chesterton? I think it's Chesterton's Gate. It's a story that C.K. Chesterton put together. And he said this wise man and this younger man were walking down the road, and uh, long road, Chesterton's fence. Thank you. Sorry. Yes, fence. And he they come to this fence across the road. It's just right there, and it's blocking traffic, although there's no traffic on the road. It's just a fence across the road. And the older man says, the young man says, we should tear that down, and get it out of the way. And the wise man says, what is the fence for? And the young guy says, I don't know. And then the older man says, well, when you do know, then come talk to me, and we'll talk about whether or not we should tear it down. I just think I just think that's such a Chesterton. Thank you. I think it's such a profound story. This doesn't make any sense. We should tear it down. Well, if you don't know what it's for, then we're not tearing it down until you can tell me what it's for. If you can tell me what it's for, then we can at least discuss whether or not there's a reason to do it. But this just this idea that it just doesn't look right, or it doesn't, that the truth is not always obvious. Marisha says, I will destroy it because I don't know what it's for, versus I won't let you destroy it until you can tell me what it's for. So are those two schmucks still standing next to that fence? Well, the young schmuck is the older, wiser guy. Went home to his house and his wife and got to bed early. That's what I think. Anyway, I reckon it's time to go. We got 2.5 hours. That's not too bad. You probably know by now the show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, and and we're very grateful for their support over the years. And we're still playing with the plug-in to get this thing done. It's just one step away. We're always It's like nuclear fusion. You know, we're just a few days away from this forever, but we're getting there. Um, anyway, thanks again for the members for making all this possible. Thanks for being here. I know it was a disturbing day, but that's why we have friends and talk about these things so we can kind of work them out. Uh, there's no one's talking about giving up, but I think uh, it's a legitimate thing to be concerned about and even upset about. So uh, it's good to have friends to talk about it with. So that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Studio, and hopefully by next time I have some new renderings for you guys. Until then, we will see you on Thursday night for the Stratosphere Lounge. So take care, and we'll talk to you soon.